All right, hello everyone. I'm here today, and I have the honor of interviewing Dr. Shigeto Kawahara of Keio University, who has done a lot of really interesting work on a lot of things, actually. But specifically, today I'm hoping to talk about his work on Japanese hip hop. Before that, though, just to begin, just before talking about this, you're a phonologist by training, is that correct?
Yeah.
And so you have about 20 plus years of post PhD research at a bunch of different universities.
Yeah, I got my PhD in 2007, so yeah, about 20 years. And I've taught at three different universities.
And what initially motivated you to get into linguistics and specifically into phonology phonetics?
Well, the initial step was really, I grew up in Japan, but I loved studying English. So I just wanted to keep studying English in college. And then I got interested in Japanese, like the comparing between English and Japanese. And I was amazed by the similarity that Japanese and English have. So that's what like current linguistics is kind of exploring, right? Like
Hmm.
the universality between languages. So I got into theoretical linguistics. I think that I was a sophomore student at that time. Then I went to UC Santa Cruz for a 1 year exchange program, and that program is like excellent. They have very good undergraduate linguistics program, and I took a bunch of courses and just I don't know phonology and phonetics, those sound related disciplines, they just clicked. So although I kept my interest in other aspects of languages.
You mentioned English and Japanese being similar. I think that might surprise some people. Like many people find them to be very different in terms of how they work. How did you find them to be similar?
Hmm, good point. Well, we start from that point of view, right?
Mhm.
Japanese and English are very different. However, okay, you know what? So we'll get to it probably.
Hmm.
But like, take a rhyming tradition
Sure.
in English and Japanese. Well, no. I'm putting this badly. Take a rhyming example that we will talk about later in detail.
Yeah.
So there's this pattern called half rhyming or
Hmm.
semi rhyming. So you can rhyme stop with rock,
Hmm.
right? And up and ok are not entirely identical, but they're similar enough so that they can rhyme in some rhyming traditions.
Sure, sure.
And it actually appears in one of the most famous English rap songs. And what I found out in my own research about Japanese rap rhyming is that a similar trend is found in such a way that in order to rhyme, they don't have to be identical, but they need to be similar. So it is this kind of same principle governing our speech behaviors in Japanese and English that
Mhm.
interests me the most.
And what was it in this process that really spawned your interest in sound specifically before you started doing university?
That's an interesting question. I one of it I think is that as a kid I like biology and physics as well, and phonetics is partly about the physiology,
Sure, yeah.
how we use our different organs to create speech.
Mhm.
And acoustics is really physics because it is about how sounds vibrate in the air and it is conveyed to the listeners. So I guess my interest about language and my old interests about like biology and physics kind of merged together. And so phonetics and phonology were the area where I could pursue both interests at the same time, I think.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I never thought about it like that, but yeah, you're right. The there's the biology and of the throat and the shape and the stuff like that. One thing I think is interesting about your research kind of today is that while your work does contain paper titles such as Token Frequency Modulates Optional Paradigm Uniformity in Japanese Voiced Velar nasalization, which are quite thick sounding. You also have a lot of projects which deal with what I guess we could call popular language use, such as work on Japanese puns and what you call Pokemonastics. Could you give us some background on these various projects and what inspired you to use these more public-facing data sources?
That's like one general philosophy that I have. So on the one hand, I want to be a hardcore theoretical linguist. I want that as my basis. So I talk about how token frequency modulates an optional process of velar nasalization,
You're better at saying it than I am.
maximum entropy harmonic grammar. That's like that's what I want to do as my core research. But I also understand that um, linguistic concepts are hard to convey to non-experts, like general public.
Sure.
So this is a very telling story. But when I got married, I went to see the parents of my wife, my then girlfriend, right? And then I had to explain what I was doing, which is a real challenge, right?
I understand that challenge, yeah.
Can't talk about lexical frequency modulating voiced nasalization. So, that was an extreme example, but also to my students, undergraduate students, I wanted to lower the psychological boundary of, conveying how fun it is to do linguistics. So that's why I do other stuff, like analysis of puns, Pokemon names, Japanese rap songs, but they're tied together. These analyses are grounded in my hardcore research. So sometimes I do get seen as like oh, Professor Kawahara does this kind of fun stuff, but that's not just it.
Right. So they say that the hard stuff influences the other stuff. Does it go back as well? Like, does the work on the public facing stuff come back in and influence the theory?
It does. It does. So I don't do fun stuff just because it's fun. I do fun stuff because it is really a window into how we use languages. And so, like, take my research on Pokemon names. Is that okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I find, um, so I analyzed the names of all existing Pokemon names and found some interesting statistical patterns. And I think I should be more specific, which is that so we have sounds like B, D, G, and Z. They're called voiced obstrents. And the trend that I found is that when Pokemon get evolved and the names change as they evolve, the numbers of voiced obstrents, B, D, G, Z, included in the names, tend to increase.
In Japanese or in English?
In Japanese.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So for some reason, voiced obstrents are associated with like bigger Pokemon characters. Yeah, stronger, bigger, larger. So that's the fun part. But I want to address why. And when we think about the actual articulation of voiced obstrents, which I was talking about like 10 minutes ago, it involves the expansion of the oral cavity, which is to say that the mouth, the oral cavity becomes larger when we produce these sounds. So this connection between voiced obstrents and largeness makes phonetic sense.
And it kind of links to the boo boo kiki kind of stuff, right?
Oh yeah, it's a kind of Bubakiki effect, but it's grounded in how we articulate our speech.
Now, this is all obviously subconscious, right?
It is subconscious, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
However, it does, tell us that we have this subconscious knowledge
Mhm.
about how we articulate these sounds, and this subconscious knowledge is kind of projected on how we perceive fictional characters' names.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like very few people actually know how language works in an intellectual sense, but apparently we all kind of in the sort of background knowledge, people do understand it because we know that they feel right and they vibe with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I think what intrigued me the most back in college time when I was a sophomore student was the realization that first of all we know so much about languages. We have a rich knowledge of how we produce and perceive speech. At the same time, we don't know that we do know that.
Yes.
Yes. That was an amazing revelation moment, and I think that's why I wanted to devote my life to linguistics.
Well, we could spend this entire interview going through a number of really fascinating projects that you've been involved in, but as I mentioned, I'm hoping today to focus on your work on Japanese rap and hip hop, which has mostly been published in Japanese via books like Gengogaku Teki Rap no Sekai and one of the interviews in Nihongo no Himitsu with the rapper Mummy D. So I just wanted to start like way back in the beginning because you've written that you were personally a fan of Japanese rap. So how did that come about?
It came about when I started my graduate study at University of Massachusetts, Amherst. So I was 22, and I decided that I'll spend 5 years in the United States. And to be honest, I was just, I had homesick,
Mm-hmm.
and I needed Japanese. And at that time, there was no YouTube, so
Mm-hmm.
my access to Japanese was really limited. So what I did was, I brought a lot of Japanese music to the States, and I listened to that. That was my precious Japanese time. And whenever I got a chance to come back to Japan, I bought a bunch of CDs and listened to them in the States. That was my cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Japanese raps, just I like, I like languages. I like Japanese, and the way the rappers play with Japanese was just fun to listen to.
Did you have any hesitation in taking this personal interest and turning it into kind of an academic thing? Like, was there any worry that you wouldn't be taken seriously or that you're going to get pushed back? Like this isn't something that you're allowed to study?
No.
Oh, that's good.
There is no, but the story is more nuanced. So I was a sophomore student, second year graduate student, and Professor Don Casteriade, who's a professor at MIT, came to UMass and gave a colloquium talk, and it was about Romanian half rhymes. So I was like, you
Mm-hmm.
can study half rhymes in Romanian poets. And what I was sensing is that Japanese rappers are actually using a lot of half rhymes. So I came to talk to Donka after the colloquium talk, and told her about it. I was really interested in the study. I'm also interested in Japanese rap songs, and Donka just said, "Go for it, study." And she actually made me rap during that party too.
That seems a bit cruel.
She wanted to hear an example
Oh,
first.
okay.
Okay. Yeah. So I had a whole a theoretical backup.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Okay.
didn't. Okay. Yeah.
So that gave you a lot of confidence to explore it.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Well, I imagine a lot of people watching this interview will be pretty unfamiliar with the history of rap in Japan, despite that it's been around for almost 50 years now, about 40, 50. So, could you give us a brief overview of when hip hop first started in Japan and what the scene was like?
So it kind of started pretty early. Um, Already in the 1980s, some musicians were interested in rap songs in English, and they tried to do the same in Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
That movement started in at least in late 80s, perhaps early 80s. I have to check the references to be exact, but around that time. But they faced a particular challenge because of the structure of Japanese, which is that, two structural features in Japanese. One is that we have only five vowels:
Yeah.
a, I, U, E, O, and we cannot end words with consonants. So we always have to end words with a vowel. So that means that word endings we have only five kinds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in English, you have a bunch of different vowels, and you can end with different consonants.
Sure.
So the combination of rhymes, you have a lot more in English, but we only have five in Japanese. So if rappers match the phrase final vowels, that doesn't sound interesting in Japanese because that occurs 20% of the time by accident, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, every verb, right?
Yeah. Also, we have like a sentence final particles like desu and masu, da. So the sentence endings are kind of like um, fixed. You don't have many choices.
Mm-hmm.
So they face those challenges. However, and I know now that I've talked to rappers, they struggled with these challenges and they came up with this interesting solution, which is to choose words that have same vowels and multiple same vowels.
Okay, I'm worried you're going to go to a specific example I want to ask you about later. So let's put a pin in that. As I want to jump off, it's kind of a question about the fundamental phenomenon you're talking about. As I've done research on the Japanese metal scene and the Japanese rock scene, and one thing I think is interesting in contrast to the Japanese rap scene is that according to your research and according to the books like Condry's Hip Hop Japan, Japanese rappers started using Japanese pretty early in the scene, whereas rock and metal in events like the Nihongo Roku Ronso, where there's this intense disagreement regarding whether or not foreign music could or even should be done in Japanese. Why do you think the Japanese hip hop scene embraced the Japanese language so quickly? Was there, you have to do this in English camp, or is it because of the required language skill? The English abilities just weren't there, so they had to go to Japanese ASAP.
Well, I cannot represent the Japanese rap community at that time for
Sure.
several good reasons, but I know that there was a debate, and the debate one specific debate that I know is that there's this really famous group, King Ghidra,
Mm-hmm.
like one of the legend group, and one of them is Zebra. One of the rap MC is Zebra, and he was I think he was going to high school in the States, so his English is pretty good, and he was rapping in English.
Okay.
Okay. And the other MC was Kate Shine, and I think he was also going to high school in the US, so his English was pretty good. But and I think no, yeah, and then K Shine also he was rapping in English, but a friend of his just asked why he was using English instead of Japanese when his native language was Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
and he was convinced. So he was kind of exploring ways to how to rhyme well in Japanese, and he kind of found a solution which I can talk about later. And I know that Zebra was convinced by KW Shine's attempt
Hmm.
to rhyme in Japanese. Um, why the difference between hip hop and rock music? I really don't know. But hip hop is about representing each community, right?
Sure, yeah, of course.
So it may have to do with that. If you hip hop is you have to represent yourself, and then it makes sense to use your own language. So maybe there's that may be a reason as well.
Okay, makes sense. All right. Uh, so moving into the rapping itself and the rhyme, you've written quite a bit about how the complexity of Japanese rappers has evolved, with rhyme being a key part of hip hop and being something that is not traditionally common, or at least not believed to be traditionally common in Japanese. And we'll get back to that. And you noted, I believe, in some of the earliest Japanese rap albums, they include like an explanation of what rhyme is and its importance for the people that bought the album. Can you talk about what happened and the difficulty of sort of taking the rhyme and introducing it to Japanese listeners to the point where now you'll see rhyme in Japanese everything?
So yes, so in the 80s and 90s, first of all, Japanese has this tanka haiku tradition where 5-7-5 rhythm is
Hmm.
like the poetic method. Like it
Hmm.
was the poetic method. So that was really dominant. So there was like a little room for a new, what you call it, like poetic strategy.
Hmm.
So they talk about they the rappers now talk about that was one big old tradition that they have to fight with.
Fight with.
Yeah. Not fight with, but I can't remember the words that they were using, but it's the I think that go shichi go 5-7-5, that style is so persuasive among Japanese people,
Hmm.
perhaps more than no, you can imagine. That the introducing a new poetic style was very difficult in the face of that really solid and influential tradition.
Even within the genre of music?
Yeah.
Does the influence of tanka and haiku, etc., appear even in Japanese pop music or like enka and rock?
I don't know about pop songs, but
Mhm.
that rhythm does pop up in some musical genres.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, to now move back to the topic of rhyme that you mentioned, obviously there's a common misconception, as you highlighted, that Japanese rhyming is really easy or meaningless because there's only five vowel sounds. I believed that when I didn't know Japanese very well. But you pushed back against this, and one example that you have called a quote miracle is a line by Mummy D, which pairs ketobase with gettomane, which is get money in Japanese phonetics. Why do you consider this line to be a miracle? What about it is so interesting?
So there are a few reasons. One of the reasons is that so the recall that the real restriction was that we only had we only had five kinds of vowels at the end. So matching two identical vowels between two lines was not very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But with the kettobase and gettomane example, actually four vowels match. So a.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a big step, right? If matching one vowel is not interesting enough. Why not match multiple vowels? That turn of that new method, I just love it. If you have a restriction in your language,
Hmm.
create something that overcomes that restriction.
Sure, necessity is the mother of invention kind of thing.
Exactly. And another aspect is more linguistic, but so if we look at how we no, let's focus on the consonants now. So
Hmm.
so the vowels, great too, but there's something interesting about consonants too. So um, getto mane, ketto base. So G corresponds with K,
Hmm.
and T corresponds with T, M corresponds with B, N corresponds with an F. So
Hmm.
let's start with G and K. How do we produce G and K? If we study phonetics, we know that they are both velar stops.
Right.
Stop sounds that are produced at the like back part of your mouth, right? So K and G are very similar. T and T, they are identical. M and B, they're both called bilabial sounds. Yeah, they're produced with both of your lips.
Hmm.
And S and N, they're called alveolar sounds. Alveolar is like the part of the at the root of your upper teeth.
Hmm.
So all these four consonant pairs, they match in where the consonants are produced. They're called place of articulation. They have the same place of articulation. And that's, as a phonetician, I just love it. And in addition, labials, alveolars, and velars, these represent the three major places of articulation in Japanese. So not only do they involve the same kind of consonants, they cover all types of major places of articulation in Japanese.
So, like, the whole mouth is going to be used within those two lines.
Exactly.
You've talked about a lot of different things in your research, but are there any other lines or particular phenomena that are particular to Japanese rap that really take advantage of the particular shape of Japanese to do things that are difficult, if not impossible, to do in other languages?
Um, when you Interesting. I think the use of accent is
Hmm.
also interesting as well. So accent is what a lot of second language learners of Japanese struggle with, but we have a difference between, for example, ame and ame.
Hmm.
So ame is low high and ame is high low, and they mean different things. So we change the meaning of words just by adjusting how we change our pitch.
Hmm.
Um, However, Japanese rappers kind of um, deliberately deviate from the normal accent pronunciation in their
Hmm.
rhymes so that they can signal where the rhyming starts.
Signal where the rhyming starts.
Yeah, meaning that it's hard to. All right, this is an example. So we have a word bakuhatsu,
Hmm.
which is low, high, high, high. Bakuhatsu and yakudatsu, low, high, low, low.
Hmm.
But some rappers produce it as yakudatsu and bakuhatsu, high, low, 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 high, low, low, low.
So, by alternating the pitch, you make it so the rhyme is more effective?
Exactly, exactly.
Because like pitch accent can change based on generation, geography, etc. Is there any time where these pitch accent changes can sound dialectical?
Um, Not for me, but I'm a pure Tokyo speaker, so I can't speak for other dialects. For speakers of other dialects.
Do they ever result in changes to pitch that don't match any variety of Japanese that exists?
I think so. I know no. Well, I shouldn't say. Well, to the best of my knowledge,
Yeah.
no dialect of Japanese um, say 爆発 or 役立つ. 役立つ. Yeah, 役立つ is a verb, and initial high on Japanese verb is unheard of, to my knowledge. Yeah.
So that kind of rap in its own sort of like not a register, but it's producing actually a new way of making Japanese sounds sometimes in order to facilitate.
Exactly. It creates a kind of musical dynamic that was not possible in other musical traditions.
It's fascinating how the quote unquote imported tradition is used to do something that is new, but only like of interest, or not of interest, but only kind of fascinating to those who were already there using the tools that they already had. Like it's not imported as a technique, it's just imported as a space, and then they play in that space with something completely original.
Yeah. Expanding that space, right? The
Mm-hmm.
very restricted space.
Another kind of restriction that's obviously very present in Japanese is just the way that syllables work. Like, I can say, I am Wes in three syllables, three beats, but by the time I say, watashi, I'm already, halfway into the bar.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how Japanese rappers deal with this sort of restriction, just the number of mora that fit into Japanese words?
Yeah. So what I've talked so far, I kind of figured it out by analyzing what's already published. Like by listening to the actual songs, I found these patterns, and I was happy as a graduate student. But when I came back to Japan, a few years have passed. Some people found my analysis of Jap rhymes interesting, and I actually had an opportunity to talk to rappers. Um, so I can now talk about what they were doing, and what I think they were doing from a linguistic point of view, right? Yeah. And what was that? Yes, and syllables. Yes. For Japanese speakers, the notion of syllables is really unreal, psychologically unreal. So we have units called moras,
Mm-hmm.
and moras corresponds to one letter in Japanese. So that unit is so psychologically salient
Mm-hmm.
that like unless you take an intro to linguistics, you don't believe that Japanese has syllables.
Sure.
Yeah. So and I had that belief as well. When I took my intro to linguistics, I didn't believe that Japanese had syllables. Like for example, like kata as a Japanese speaker, it's three more words. Ka,
Yeah.
yeah, ta.
Yeah.
But in terms of syllables, you are kata, two syllables.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't, there's no sense in which kata is consists of two units.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I started talking to rappers like Mummy D and Zebra, they said, nope, the basic unit of rhyming is syllables, not moras. So there was so there are many cases when they squeeze in multiple vowels into one musical note.
Mm-hmm.
And that squeezing happens when the vowels are in the same syllable, like I, and they exactly point out the problem that you mentioned. Since Japanese is basically a CV language, vowel, consonant, vowel language, we need a lot of musical notes to express the same thing. Like, what's the example that Mommy D was giving? The example that I often use is that in English, Christmas is just two syllable word,
Mm-hmm.
right? Christmas, right? Right?
Yes. Yes.
See, syllables are hard for Japanese speakers. But when Japanese speakers produce Christmas, it becomes Kurisumasu, five more
Mm.
five syllables. So we are like 20% efficient. Given the same number of notes, Japanese are like less efficient than English. So you have to squeeze some. So we had that problem. So in order to convey the same amount of information, given the same number of musical notes, you need to do something, and using syllables is one means to squeeze in Japanese sounds into those musical notes.
Mhm.
And they also make use of devoiced vowels as well.
Oh, just dropping the vowel?
Yeah, so devoiced vowels are like E and U. So we say like ski.
Mhm.
So on letters, it should sound like suki, suki,
Right.
but the way we say it is ski with the initial u not really pronounced. But Japanese rappers actively use that phenomena.
So that's deleting things that aren't normally
Yeah,
deleted?
exactly. So they
And
they actively drop droppable vowels a lot.
does that make it hard to interpret at all, or does this sound natural? Well, not natural, but intelligible.
The I don't well maybe I haven't done a systematic study on the intelligibility of
Oh,
speech,
just
but
for you as a
for you
fan,
as a
yeah.
fan, yeah. But it does give a rhythmic structure that isn't otherwise possible with this syllable timing and the active use of dropping high vowels, the voiced vowels. It does sound different from
Okay.
the usual speech.
And you mentioned with I, right? Like if it's stressed, it could come out as two syllables, like ah, e, but they're kind of blending it into one, right? I.
Yeah.
Okay. And another thing that really surprised me about some of your research that you've highlighted how hip hop, which again is, imported, whatever that means, is actually revitalizing some traditional Japanese language phenomena. For instance, you've highlighted how in the old Japanese poetry collection, the Manyoshu, it actually has some internal rhyme in it. And in Nihongo no Himitsu, you interview a Japanese tanka poet as well as the rapper Lamami D, and you note how they're both using Giamari as part of their technique.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that means? And also, like, what do you think about how rap is actually taking these old things and making them new in a way?
I guess so far I was focusing on the novelty of Japanese rap rhymes, but as I talked about like half an hour ago, there was a time when Japanese rappers were struggling with
Mm-hmm.
how to rhyme in Japanese in the first place, and it did not come out of vacuum. So they thought about Japanese poem traditions. They took a lot of like joking puns
Mm-hmm.
into consideration, and they kind of it was like a mixed soup, you know, with a bunch of methods mixed together. And when I think back from a more neutral, so when I was a graduate student, I was like, Japanese hip hop is novel, great, interesting, um, but when I so 10 years later, I can view it from a more neutral point of view,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm starting to um, find similarities between rap songs and more traditional poems. And I guess we can go back to the 575 poem tradition. So, one thing that was pointed out to me is that although that 575 rhythm is usually said to be based on moras,
Mm-hmm.
but there are cases in which 6 is allowed instead of 5, 8 is allowed instead of 7.
Mm-hmm.
But many cases involve um, 6 moras but 5 syllables. 8 moras but 7 syllables. So there's a sense in which moras are important,
Mhm.
but syllables is also kind of important as well.
Sneaky little syllables.
Yeah. So the Tawara Machi-san, she's one of the greatest modern poets. She was saying like, we talk about 575, but I feel like 5.2 and 6.8 are also allowed. So she is taking the average between moras and syllables.
Mhm.
I said that syllables are really psychologically unreal for Japanese speakers, but those with the really like a acute sense about
Mhm.
how Japanese sounds, syllables are real, and both traditional poets and Japanese rappers are taking advantage of that unit.
Well, outside of what we've talked about so far and all these like changes that are happening in Japanese to rap and the things that they found out about traditional Japanese that they might not have known, what do you think is outside of what we've talked about one of the biggest misconceptions people outside of the Japanese rap scene, be they non-Japanese people or just non-rap fans, have about Japanese rap?
I don't know how it is in the U.S., but it is still considered as what's the best adverb? うん、不良たちのやってる不良たちの音楽
Like music for the bad kids.
yeah.
Still?
Yeah, they can look that way, right? And
Mm-hmm.
there's this freestyle battle, and it from the outside point of view, it looks like just they're just yelling at each other. It can look that way,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that that's a misconception, and the reasons, I've already talked about the reasons. Matching multiple vowels, matching similar yet not identical consonants. They care about syllable counts. These are, I think, verbal arts, like a form of art that take advantage of linguistic, aesthetic considerations. So they're not just yelling at each other.
Is this something that like people are still talking about? Think people still think it's people yelling at each other, or is there more like you've been on the news multiple times? I mean, is there a growing awareness of this as a Japanese art, or do you think there's a reluctance to put it on the same pedestal as something like tanka or things like that?
The situation is changing. It's changing drastically. So when I was first listening to Japanese rap music, that was like back in 2000, early 2000s. It was literally like a marginal sector, maniac music genre that only like one kid in your class listens to. One out of 30. And it becomes popular, but so there was this telling case um, back in 2020. We all remember that there was this COVID pandemic,
Yes.
right? And every class at Keio University became online. I guess that's the same everywhere.
Same, yeah.
And we instructors, teachers were asked to rewrite syllabi because they become online. So we had to change the content, and we had to change the syllabus. So I wrote in my syllabus, what the hell? Let's have fun with linguistics. I'll talk about Pokemon rap music, and linguistics, and then like more than like 150 students registered in my class. Like, that was not expected.
Right.
And so the people from students from a lot of different academic background got together online in my class, like education majors, literature majors, um, psychology majors, um, and I thought maybe rap is something that a lot of major students can find interesting because teaching the history about how hip hop arose is interesting for American study major students, history major students, politics. There was this attempt to teach rap rhyming to elementary school kids, so it can have to do with education major students. And my linguistic analysis was obviously interesting for language study majors, etc. So I spent quite a few weeks on Japanese raps, and many student reports said that they didn't think that Japanese rap had this, well, rap tradition in general had this rich structure, um, or that the rap lyrics can be analyzed this way, etc. But they many reports started with a remark saying that they thought that rap music is for bad kids, but they now see it differently. So that was the situation in 2020.
Way, way, way back when you were listening to rap, were your parents concerned?
Not really.
Very cool of them. Well, I just have a few more questions. One links to what you're just saying, as you said in your book that we're currently in the sixth wave of Japanese hip hop, where it's mixed with K-pop and mainstreaming, but also diversifying the scene. But you also mentioned something called the winter period that was about in the 2000s. What happened there?
I'm not a historian, so it's hard to say. Maybe it's like after the bubble. What did that come about? So like I said, I'm not a historian, but so around 2000, there was this move that Japanese rap was becoming popular. It was not just underground, but it was, you know, uh, like some of them start showing up on TV programs and
Mhm.
stuff. But that apparently was a bubble. So kind of like there was this period of time when that stopped and they went underground again.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is now kind of like the second rise?
Yeah, second rise or third rise, I'm not sure, but so Zebra, one of the MCs that I
Mhm.
mentioned, he started a TV program called Freestyle Dungeon,
Mhm.
and that was all about freestyle battles.
Mhm.
But I think that was one big factor that kind of created the rise from the winter period.
When was this?
I think 2015, if I
And
recall it correctly. But
was this mainstream TV or like YouTube?
it was on mainstream TVs, but they also streamed it on YouTube as well.
All right. Well, I just have one question, and unfortunately, I apologize because I think it's going to be the hardest question. If somebody watches this interview and decides that they want to start listening to Japanese rap, what are like five albums you would recommend that sort of span the history of the genre and you see as kind of a masterpiece in the history of Japanese hip hop?
All right, all right. No, that's actually not that difficult.
Oh, wow. Okay. You're clearly the expert.
Maybe I should take that back. But in the book that you mentioned, 言語学的ラップの世界, I kind of organized the history of Japanese rap scenes according to generations. And the first generation is kind of those people who try to import um, rap tradition into Japanese directly. And there was the following generation where they try to reconstruct the rap scenes in Japanese rather than
Hmm.
the direct importation. And I think people should always start with the second tradition because it's like reading Shakespeare.
Sure.
It's like where they started the, um, how it started.
Hmm.
The first generation is interesting as well, but it's they're still trying.
Hmm.
The second tradition, they know what they were doing. They're still
Hmm.
trying, but they established a new method. So from the second generation, I first of recommend Buddha Brando. They have the full album. It's one of my favorite. Um, I would also recommend Rhymestar.
Hmm.
So Mami D, who I interact with, who I talked about in one of these books, both of the books actually, is one member. Rhymestar also is um, they should check out Rhymestar.
Okay.
King Ghidorah,
Hmm.
we talked about Zebra and Kid of Shine a lot. For my favorite, maybe it is a third generation, but there's DJ called Idea.
Idea?
Idea. I like his compilation album a lot. And that's my personal preference.
Hmm.
The fifth one, what shall I pick? Ah, I guess this is a great time to acknowledge the inspiration that I got from Shinpei-san. He actually passed away a few months ago, but he was the guy who was willing to um, integrate the rap scene with educational scene,
Okay.
teaching rap music to elementary school kids. He came to my class to teach the basic to college students. He was doing a lot of outreach, and he enjoyed doing that very much.
He's interviewed in your book, right?
Yeah, he's
Yes.
interviewed in my book. Yeah, we collaborated a lot. And I guess this is a good opportunity for me to acknowledge my thanks to him and recommend the listeners to listen to his songs. Many of the songs are available on YouTube.
Is there a specific album of his that you'd recommend?
Um, album. I don't listen to his music on the album on the unit album, but his Boko Boko no Mic is one of the classics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate this. This was really nice conversation. I've been a fan of the way you've been doing linguistics that makes sense to normal people and is an interesting topic. So I really appreciate the chance to kind of pick your mind about this work and present it because I don't believe you've published on this in English very much.
No, I enjoyed it. I'm glad I could flesh my out ideas in English still. Yeah. It's kind of ironic because the first paper, of course, I wrote in English.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of my dissertation.
Yeah.
But everything I wrote after that is in Japanese because it's written for the Japanese audience. But I'm glad that I'm now, well, you're giving me the opportunity to reach out to non-Japanese community.
Do you have any more research on Japanese rap that's coming, or have you kind of any projects moved away from that?
I haven't done much new stuff on Japanese raps per se. Is there a specific reason for this? I don't know. I haven't done a new academic analysis of Japanese rap rhymes, and I feel like I've talked about this a lot already in Japan. So anything I say would be a repetition of what I've already said. So
Mm.
I feel a little reluctant to say more about this unless I do a new research. But kind of busy with other agendas these days.
Fair enough. Well, I really appreciate you making time for this in your busy schedule. Thanks so much for chatting with me.